So happy Thursday evening to everyone, and welcome to Women's Health Matters podcast, where we go through. I have lots of really amazing speakers on my podcast talking about all aspects of women's health. So mentally, physically, women's health in business, women's health with food or exercise. So every area, covering from fertility, hormones, weight loss, sleeping. We've lots and lots of really amazing guest speakers. And I'm joined by another amazing lady tonight, and I'm going to let her introduce her to us, and she's going to tell you what she does and how she came here. Okay, so welcome, and tell everyone about you and who you are.
Thank you, Lucy. My name's Carrie-Anne Hunter. I live in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland. I emigrated here from Australia in 1994. I came over for my cousin's wedding because my dad's side of the family are all from the north of Ireland, and I'm still here.
That's amazing. Is that your first trip to Ireland when you came for your cousin's wedding?
No, second. We had come 2 years before that to say goodbye to my granny before she passed away.
Okay. Oh, that was a tough one to come over.
No, actually, I forgot. It was my third time, because we came here when I was 11 as well. That was the first time my dad had been back since he left to go to Australia.
So how did you end up staying here how did you end up ending up in the north from Australia?
When I arrived in 1994, it was my 21st birthday present, and I timed it to arrive at the same time as my cousin's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And she had lived with us for a while when I was in high school. She was backpacking around Australia, so I came over for her wedding and decided I'd do like a working holiday. So I came over, and I'm still here.
That's a bit like me. I came here for 6 months and I've been here 30 years now. It's mad, isn't it? Coming over for 6 months, gonna ride. I'm like mad into horses, ride race horses, and do my bit, and then that was it. Then I ended up staying. It's mad the way it happens. Yeah, I met an Irish man. I'm from the UK, so near Brighton.
Lovely.
Is my home. My home. I have two homes. I think it's really hard when you have two places that you really love. You really love two countries. Yeah, it's difficult.
Oh, absolutely. And they're both home, but yours is a bit closer than mine.
Yeah, a little bit closer. And do you get back to go home much? Do you get home often?
I'll say yes, but it's never really on a holiday. During the early 2000s, I would have gone back and forth a bit, because that was the time when my mum was dying of cancer, and we kept visiting, and then I had children and was taking them with me for visits. But the last time I was home was 5 years ago when my brother got married.
Oh, that was a happy occasion.
Oh, it was, but yeah, definitely beautiful, lovely.
So that must have been very difficult when your mum was dying of cancer and you were here. How did you cope with all of that?
I have no idea. You know that it's a poster that I've seen somewhere, the footsteps in the sand, and you see lots of footsteps, and then all of a sudden there's one, and you were being carried. I think I was being carried because I wasn't coping. I had two small children. I was so isolated. We were living in a really rural area, and I didn't have a support network really. So it was just not good at all.
Okay. It's a tough one. And how long ago was that?
My first daughter was born in 2005. So by that time, my mum had already had breast cancer. And then she came down then with esophageal cancer, I think around 2009.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit hard to remember. It's all a bit of a blur, the years. But by that time, my second daughter had been born, and I was going back and forth, and she was going through chemo, and then she ended up passing away in 2011 from throat cancer. So she'd been through a really bad time.
She had a rough time. And you were here and she was there. It's so hard, isn't it? Because your life and your family are being made an island, yet you're pulled back to Australia with your family again. It's very difficult. So it is. And what about your dad? How did your dad cope with everything?
I guess head in the sand. I don't know. He wouldn't be very communicative. Around the time of his death in 2018, it became apparent to me that he must have been on the spectrum, undiagnosed somewhere, because he had so many of the behaviours that an autistic person would have, so he didn't cope well at all. I don't know what to say. He just went along on his own, did his own thing, and you know how they say the lack of empathy, he had no empathy for anybody else. He just sorted himself out, that kind of a way,
Do you think that was just the way he managed to cope with it, that he couldn't manage with anybody else's feelings?
No, because I think, when you look back over the decades, he had no empathy towards anybody else's feelings when I was growing up either. And in the years after Mum died, he did a few stupid things that caused terrible pain to me and my family. And, if I was sitting there crying in front of him, he had no reaction because there was no empathy. Do you know what I mean? In all areas, not just at the time when he was trying to get through life when Mum was dying. He just sort of tried to do day to day as best he could, I guess.
And how do you think that affected you?
Yeah, not well. Not well at all. I don't know how to answer that.
It's okay.
I know my mental health suffered terribly, really badly. It did. I think as soon as my children were born, I would say my mental health took a turn for the worst, because I really realised how much you lean on your mother at times like that, and she wasn't here. Thank God at that time she was at the end of the phone, but it really wasn't the same. I was terribly, terribly isolated and on my own a lot, and my husband was working 3 jobs, and it just wasn't good. So everything that happened after that was just a snowball of things getting worse, or me just trying to cope, basically.
It's very difficult. I can really relate to that because of having my babies here now. As you said, it was easier because the UK is only a hop over. My mom could get to me easy, and my mom wasn't sick, so I had 2 things to, which were better for me. But it is tough when you don't have family around you and you have small children. It's just because my partner, his parents weren't around either. They had both died way before I had met him. So it was it was difficult. It was difficult. So I understand that lack of support when you have a small baby. It's very, 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 very hard to deal with. Incredibly hard to deal with.
It was.
No one tells you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, they don't, do they? I had no idea about lots of things.
Yeah.
Well, my husband's family were all here, but they weren't and aren't close to us. And then some of my dad's side of the family still live in this area as well, but they weren't like hands-on helping. They were just geographically close,
So what did you do? How did you turn it around? How did you get yourself back up and going?
When I knew I was getting really bad, I went to the doctors and told her, and she basically poo-pooed me out of her office, saying, well, I'm a mother of 5 and I've got a full-time job and I'm fine. And I went, oh, well, that's interesting. Thanks for listening. I just felt really not listened to at all. And eventually then I went back to the same GP practice, but saw a locum that was on, and she immediately put me on antidepressants, and I could feel the difference within like 2 or 3 days. You know, the medication kicked in and it did lift my mood, and I'm still on them to this day. Anytime I've tried to wean myself off them or lower the dose, my mental health is so bad, I'm worried about myself. So I'm like, okay, stay on the tablets.
But that's okay too. I think you know, when you know that they're helping you, it's all right to stay on them.
Yep, they're not going to kill me, so whatever. As long as
Yeah.
it keeps me on an even keel, I'm happy enough.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time, you know, I had a lot of time to think, and I just sort of got strength from somewhere, I think, definitely. And I've got faith, you know, so, you know, I would always say to myself that, you know, God would never leave me and he wouldn't give me too much, so much that I couldn't cope with it, that kind of thing. And just my inner voice was coming through saying, you're going to be okay. And I went, all right then.
Just that self-belief that you were going to be all right.
Yeah, but it took a while. You know, it's just having to talk myself around all the time.
But you did it.
I did. Took a few years, but yes.
Yeah. That's, I mean, even to have the courage to go back into the GPs again, to face another doctor with the same problem, possibly facing the same ridicule. Do you know what I mean? That luckily you met someone who went like, okay, I understand what you're going through. Here's something that will help you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I knew there was something wrong with me and I wasn't good. And I just thought, no, I know I have to do something about it. I couldn't leave it. I had to go back.
But don't forget, you've had two small babies and just lost your mum. You know,
this was actually before my mum had passed away.
Okay.
That was a couple of years later. But yeah, things weren't good. Things weren't good here, where I live in the village, you know, with different things going on. And there's always something, isn't there?
There is. Absolutely, there is. So tell me more about your dad. You're saying that he got scammed.
Yes. I believe this happened somewhere around the time of Mum's death, because he was made redundant prior to her dying, and he would have spent a lot of time on the computer and he played games, and I think he was groomed in a chat room of the games. And then after she passed away, I went home about 3 or 4 days. I flew back here after her funeral, and he was basically on his own. My brother still lived in Melbourne at the time, but they weren't living together. So Dad was on his own, and I just think he was ripe for the picking for a romance scammer, and he just was completely brainwashed. So this mum passed away in the July of 2011, and then Dad passed away in June of 2018. So between 2011 and 2018, he'd given away about $500,000 worth of money to them.
$500,000?
Yeah, not pounds.
I know, but still, that's still a big amount of money. And did you know that this was happening? Did you have any idea? You did, though?
Not after she died. No, it took a couple of years. He kept mentioning a girlfriend and that she was overseas, and they talked on the computer. And I mean, there was a red flag for me straight away. And I remember him saying that she was on her way to the airport and was hit by a taxi at the airport and broke her leg and was asking for money. And I thought, well, that's not true. That's a big steaming pile of crap, isn't it? But he believed it. He was just completely brainwashed, so brainwashed. And that was just the start. And I think it went on. I don't know if it was the same people, but it was different women over the years. Eventually, he sold the house that he was living in, and he went to live with my brother. And my brother became aware of the extent of it. And he brought in the police and everything to prove to my dad that he was being scammed. But my dad wouldn't have a bar of it at all. Complete denial. So him and my brother actually sort of fell out, you know. And for a while, my dad lived in a flat by himself, and I just felt sick about the whole thing. You know, the dad was on his own, and I just didn't feel good about any of it. So I said to Dad, why don't you come here, come back to Northern Ireland and come and live with us? So he came to live with us in 2014. And because he had lived here, he was able to get a small pension, and he already had his Australian pension. And he got a flat and he lived here for a while, but it just kept going on and on. So after he moved here, I had the police, his GP, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, anything I could possibly think of to prove to him that he was being scammed, and he just wasn't having it at all.
It's really scary because there's a program on BBC. My mum was staying, so she had it on the TV, and it was on the morning time, and it was about like these about scammers, but they would target someone like your dad because they know that he's an easy target and believable, so he would be on the scamming list. So, you know, say it was us that were scamming him, I would do it, and then I'd pass his information on to you, and then you'd scam him, and it would just keep going around. It's very cleverly done, and God love him, you know, he just fell for it, because it is, I mean, honestly, when you see some of these people, when they find out, they are absolutely completely stunned by it. I don't know if you watched the Tinder Swindler on Netflix.
No.
I mean,
I don't want to watch anything like that. I've had enough of it.
I don't blame you, but it was the same, like smart women, like smart people, clever women and men got swindled by this guy. And I have to be honest, when I first started watching the program, I was like, how do they fall for this? But I think, in all honesty, I possibly could have fallen for it too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but for the grace of God go all of us. You know, you can't say he's stupid for falling for it.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I really 100%. They really reel you in, and they prey on the heart. You know, your kindness, your father's kindness, and that's what got him. Yeah. Awful people that do that. Vulnerable.
Terrible.
People. It is terrible. Really terrible. So tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do?
I've got a really mixed background between administration and a bit of retail, a bit of hospitality. I was a stay-at-home mum for 6 years while the kids were small. And then when I went back to work, I did a little bit of administration, like a solicitor's secretary or receptionist, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to study social media. So in 2018, in the months leading up to my dad's death, actually, I was studying to be a social media manager with Digital Moms. And then Dad passed away about a month before I graduated. And then that following year after that, I went self-employed doing social media for people.
Very good.
And then at that point, both of my kids were in high school after that. So I decided, you know, I didn't have to do any work around the school pickup and things because they were getting the school bus. So I just went back into employment again because I could work, you know, 9 to 5 and not have to worry about the kids.
Yeah.
And after school care.
So you're working in full-time employment now, and do you like it? Are you enjoying it?
Yes, I've always loved my work. No, I left the job that I went into after that was a hotel receptionist, which I loved. The hotel became like my second home. But all the lockdowns has changed the industry so much. The whole industry is just in tatters in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't a happy place to work anymore. So at the end of the summer last year, I left and I got a new job. I was working from home in a call center, and then that contract finished in March. So since then, I've really just been doing freelance admin for people. So at the moment, I have 3 clients and I do whatever admin they need done here from home, or I work on site with them, or a little bit of both. So it's lovely. I enjoy the both, working on site and working from home. It's very pleasant.
Yeah, the benefit of both, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So really, like, Carrie-Anne, you're showing like women who are listening to this, like you've got huge resilience, that you fought your fight bringing up your kids. You managed to go backwards and forwards to Australia, which is not an easy feat with two small children. I've never been to Australia, but it's a really, really long flight, isn't it? Like 24 hours or something to get there. And then, like the care that you showed your dad when he didn't show you much care, he wasn't able to show you the empathy that you wanted when you were younger. But, I'm sure you're doing that to your girls now, showing them the love and kindness. So, in ways that your dad taught you a huge lesson about learning to love and give and things like that. So I always think parents give us something, there's always a good quality about our parents, and there's always stuff that the things that we don't want to learn from them. And there's that in me as well, and my kids, there's things that they probably shouldn't take up from me, but hopefully they take up all the good stuff. I asked actually Amber, I was like, Amber, what do you think of Mum? And she goes, oh, Mum, you're really lovely, you're a really lovely person, but sometimes you do have a bad temper. So there's nothing like kids to actually tell you how it is there? They kind of tell you. And that the fact that you really helped your dad out with the scamming, and that he realized, hopefully that he realized that he was being scammed at some, at the end of it all, and that he wasn't too angry at those people that did this to him. So
yeah, I think the anger was all mine, because not so much at him, a wee bit at him because of his naivety and the stupidity of it. But at the end, he was giving every penny he had to them, leaving himself with no oil or nothing for the fire to keep himself warm. There was no food in the house. So I was always like bringing him bags of groceries or bags of coal or firewood, putting oil in his tank, which we did not have spare money. And, I really did. It took food out of my children's mouths to make me feel happy that he was being kept warm. Do you know what I mean? So that did make me really, really angry, especially when I found, after he died, we emptied his flat and I found some of his bank statements, and I opened them up, and he was giving away up to £300 a week to the scammers.
And could you like give that as evidence to the police? To, I suppose no, because he was willingly giving it, wasn't he? That's the problem.
Yep. He did willingly give it. There's nothing we can do. Nothing.
And do you know how these scammers came to your dad? Can you warn people about like how they came into his life, so we can look out for them?
Well, I know it started in the chat rooms of the games, that he was playing online.
So what kind of games was he playing online?
I think it was card games, and like in Australia they call them pokies, like poker machines, things like that, just online games. And I know whenever I've played with them before, like I like Wheel of Fortune or Scrabble, and I have the app. I used to have the app on my phone and play it. They've all got chat rooms. And the messages you get, I just think, no way am I going into those chat rooms, and no more am I going to answer any of those messages. It's just like opening a can of worms. You've got to keep up a boundary there.
Yeah, it's very easy to fall into it, isn't it? I mean, that's like, yeah, very easy. And especially if you're lonely, or, or a kid that's arguing with his mum or dad or something, it's very easy to be sucked into, isn't it? That there's someone going on the other end giving you the ear that you need to, but you don't really need, if that makes sense.
I think, that I could have easily fallen for something similar around the time that I was at home with my first baby. Because if I had have sat in chat rooms, I think net mums or something like that was big at the time. And I remember thinking, if I sit here, I'm going to end up you know, saying something I shouldn't to the wrong person or something, you know, that's why I say there, but for the grace of God, go us. I know I was in a very vulnerable state after my first kid was born, very isolated, and I just knew it could have been a rabbit hole. So I didn't go onto those websites anymore.
You were lucky. At least you had, you know, that enough in you to know that that's what was going to happen. That was really good. So what would you say to first-time moms who are struggling? What would you say to them?
Oh my gosh. There's got to be someone. There has to be somebody in your life who gives a shit, and you have to find them. Whether it's a neighbor, a cousin, a friend, somebody from church, an ex-colleague, somebody cares. And when you find them, you know, you've got to lean on them, but you've also got to be a friend to them as well. You know, you can't just lean on people. And it's all about, you know, talking to people and being honest about how you're feeling. And you can tell when you're talking to someone whether they care. Do you know what I mean? They might say, hey, how are you today? And they're not even listen to the answer. And you're like, yeah, you don't want to know. Okay, I'm not telling you anything. But there's got to be someone. There's always going to be somebody around who, I hope you don't mind me swearing.
No, go for it.
It's the Australian in me. There's always going to be somebody who gives a shit. And I just hope that every person who needs to talk finds someone to talk to. Sometimes, you know, when you're watching people's stories on Instagram and things like that, you can get an idea, oh dear, she's having a bad day. And I would, even if I hardly know the person, I would always send a message to say, you know, how are you? How are you doing? And I've had some really interesting conversations that way, because people sometimes don't realize that I might care, you know, and even be able to help or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can see it in some people when they need help because they're not coping, or my friend calls it, I forget what she says, but it's really good. How you can tell somebody they're spilling, or I can't remember what she said, but anyway, they're spilling their feelings, you know?
Yeah. They're crying out for help. Yeah. And it's listening, isn't it? It is that art of listening. Yeah, really is an art of listening. Wow, that's good. Good advice. I think that's really good advice. Find someone that gives a shit.
Actually, because if somebody doesn't, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to care.
No.
You know, there's no point telling people who don't care.
No.
Because they're not going to help you. And I've definitely found that, you know, if I've turned to even family members who are perhaps geographically close or whatever, but for whatever reason, whatever is happening with them, I don't know, the support is not there. There's no to and fro in the conversation. You know, if I said I was feeling terrible and things were bad, I remember talking to somebody and they just looked at me, you know, with nothing. No, I'm sorry to hear that, or is there some way I can help you? Nothing. And I just thought, okay, so I don't talk to them anymore about that. It's just very superficial.
I think you have your people, don't you? You have your people that mind you, and it's finding that those few really great friends that you mind them, they mind you, and you know that they've got your back, and they're the ones that are cherished friends. They really are cherished friends. I'm lucky I have a few of those really good cherished friends that I know I can ring up and cry down the phone or tell them I'm coming over, I need a hug or something. Yeah, I 100% need those friends, and just as much as they need me, you know, I'd be there for them. Yeah. Awesome. It's really, it's very important. And that reaching out for help. I have a friend actually that I've known a while now, but when I'd heard of her, she does similar work to me. She's works as she's actually a horse physiotherapist, but and I do acupuncture and life coaching. So we'd cross over through the horses, and I'd hear about Susan Elliott. And anyway, I remember one day I just rang her about a horse that both of us had seen and things like that. And then we just got chatting, and I don't know. And then the next time we called again, and it was, I suppose she hit me at a vulnerable moment, and I really needed to talk to someone. And she was like, "I hear it in your voice. Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay." But it was lovely that she, and we became, and because I opened up and showed, I felt that she created a safe space for me to share what was going on in my life at that time. That it was great to have her support, and we became really good friends because of that, and I was able to trust her. Yeah. So there are those people out there, and I think it is about showing vulnerability and allowing them to help you. Yeah. And it's not a weakness, it's a strength. I think that's what's important in this, actually. Yeah, that they and I've made great friends that way, by showing vulnerability. Yeah, really good ones. So
it's about keeping it real, isn't it? Because if what's happening to you is having a bad effect on you or whatever, it's real, it's life, it's what's happening, so there's no point telling lies about it or keeping it a secret. If there's somebody that could share your burden or whatever, it's better to talk about things, I think.
Yeah, it is better to talk about things. I always think there's a brilliant book part in one of the Harry Potter books where Harry's, I can't remember which one it is, but Harry anyways, he's been attacked by Voldemort and everything is being held in and he's not able to speak it, but Dumbledore does a magic spell on him, and then the next thing the words come out. But I love the way she describes it, that the words are leaving his system like poison. And I think it's so true. If you hold them in, they poison your system and they kill you and not the person that you feel angry or or whatever it is, resentful towards. Yeah, they're killing you. There's that poison in your system.
Yeah.
So it's good to air them. You don't have to get cross or anything like that. Sometimes you get upset, but you don't have to get angry about it. But anger is good too. But it's releasing it, isn't it? It's letting that poison out. And it's quite...
Yeah. There's no point holding on to it, is there?
No.
It's not going to do you any good. You need to process it.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes it can be, sometimes you can't articulate it. It's you want to say it, but it gets stuck in your throat. But, once those first words come out, it will all just fall out then. It's like blah. But it's saying those first few words at the hard part. Yeah.
I remember trying to tell my husband, what way I was feeling at one point. There was a lot of things bothering me. A lot of not necessarily small things, and it says, now this is all just going to come out. It's in no particular order, but it all has to come out. And you can just put it together at the end, whatever way you like. And away I went then. There's this and there's this and this, that and the other. And I thought the poor man has just had an avalanche of complaints and all of my worries on his shoulders. But sometimes it's not going to come out in coherent sentences.
No.
It's just going to fly out of you.
Yeah, it does. It comes out of you in some way. I think you can hold in upset, you can hold in anger, but the only emotion that you cannot hold in is laughter. Laughter is the only one. If you try and hold it in, you like your shoulders start shaking, or you're like this. So that's the only one you can't hold in. But the others we can hold in spectacularly well, but they're not. It's not a great thing to do. Yeah,
that's really true. Very true.
Yeah. So we need to allow them come out. Listen, you've been an amazing guest and really true to life. Things that going through postnatal depression is a tough one, and plus your mom on top, and then all the drama with your dad, like that's phenomenal. And you're still standing and smiling and loving and laughing, which is all, it's inspirational. It really is inspirational. Thank you so much for being a speaker on Women's Health Podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And I would just like to finish off by saying, all of these things happen, and they can really knock you hard, really knock you hard. But I think some of the really bad things that happened to me have given me empathy for other people. And because I can see in other people when something's bothering them now because of the awful things that I've gone through. So in a way, it's good that I did, because now it's given me empathy, you know, instead of just compassion or sympathy. So yeah, it's not all bad.
No, and you're proof of that. Look at the smile.
Mm.
That's good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.